Hello and welcome to the 18th episode of Italian Politician of the Week. 2020 is about to end, and with that also the second season of this series, which I'm very proud of. Expect to see the final episode in a couple of weeks, but not today, because we are talking about Giulia Grillo, our former Minister of Healthcare from 2018 up until 2019. Before we start, I want to address the elephant in the room. Some of you might be wondering why I'm talking about the old Minister of Healthcare instead of the current one, even though he has been anything but irrelevant in the past few months due to the current historical events. There are quite a few reasons why. While I do agree that Speranza has done some questionable things, especially in the past weeks, like he did little to nothing to improve the healthcare system before the second wave, undermined the power of regional governments, and made it illegal for people to go out for Christmas. But I honestly think that the idea of dividing the country for the number of cases and assigning different laws for each area was actually a pretty good idea, and I still think he handled the first wave very well, so calling him the worst Minister of Healthcare ever is a bit of an exaggeration. Of course, that does not mean that any complaint or critique of him is nonsense. For example, my authoritarian right friends like to compare him to the Grinch, together with Conte, which I find hilarious and very valid as a comparison. Many people in this country talk about politics just to complain, but today I intend to tell you that it could have been a lot worse. How so? Imagine if Giulia Grillo was still minister. This begs the question, who is Giulia Grillo? Grillo was born in Catania, Sicily in 1975 and graduated to become a doctor in 1999. She seemed to have a bright future in the field of healthcare until she joined the five-star movement back at its infant state in 2006. In 2013, she was elected into parliament where she was very participative. As you can imagine, both the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies are divided into groups according to the party affiliation. Each group has a president, and from 2016 to 2018, she was the president of the five-star movement group in the Chamber of Deputies, which is not something to scoff at. Grillo has been interested in fixing the problem of the lack of personnel in the health sector. She has also underlined the importance of public health compared to private facilities. Furthermore, she has repeatedly criticized Italian medicine agencies for favoring private initiatives, especially when it comes to the sale and manufacture of medicines and vaccines. You know, there is a very reasonable point behind supporting public healthcare, because by improving just private healthcare, you are only helping the people who can afford it. On the other hand, helping public healthcare improves the general quality of life of essentially everyone. The only people who are not happy about an improvement of public healthcare are private clinics, because the only reason why they exist is that they can give a better service of public clinics at a higher price, and if the public clinics are good, that means private clinics will have to work harder or close down, and they don't want that. Although behind this completely reasonable position of the topic of healthcare lies something odd, to say the least, hence her opinion on vaccination. You see, in 2017 the government passed a law called the Lorenzin Law, which essentially made vaccination mandatory for the kids if they were going to go to public school. Hence, you are free to not vaccinate your kids because you read it contains a residue of ketchup on truefacts.com, but the state will want nothing to do with your kids because they can be a threat to the health of others. Grillo was and still is to this day strongly against this law, because even though she strongly believes in the efficiency of vaccines, they should not be mandatory to kids. Why? Because that would just bring more money to the evil corporations selling vaccines. Even if we pretend that whoever is selling vaccine is literally Satan, I think most people would agree enriching an evil corporation at the expense of the safety and welfare of their kids is a pretty good trade-off, but not for Grillo for some reason. Therefore, when she was chosen to be Minister of Healthcare at the first Conte government in 2018, many dubbed her as the Anti-Vax minister, which, as you can imagine, was bonkers to think about at the time.
Movimento 5 Stelle non solo non è contrario alle vaccinazioni, ma ne riconosce l'importanza l'importanza e l'utilità. Vaccinati sì, ma in modo consapevole. Vogliamo che i cittadini siano ben informati e che il servizio sanitario pubblico sia più presente nell'accompagnamento sia nella fase pre che nella fase post vaccinale della famiglia intera, dei genitori e dei bambini.
At the moment of her nomination, she was probably the most criticized new member of the Council of Ministers, but she was probably forgotten after she essentially did nothing during her short mandate, to the disappointment of all the people that liked her for the promises she made of improving public healthcare. My guess is that she tried to cut ties between the Ministry of Healthcare and these so-called big pharma corporations, but she was constantly stopped because it is simply not how it works. She made little to no impact whatsoever to the field, and thank God for that, because after the Lorenzin law passed, there was a steady decline in cases of measles and other diseases preventable with vaccines. There was a thing she did that actually left an impact. She nominated Cotticelli to be Commissioner of Calabria back in 2018, and if you watch my previous video, you would know that Cotticelli was so incompetent and stupid that he had no idea he was supposed to make a plan against COVID-19 and therefore doomed the region for months. Thank you, Grillo. Now imagine what mess would we be in if Grillo was still minister today and assigned a Cotticelli in every single region in Italy. Italy would have sunk under the ocean by now. Last thing before we go, if you still think that maybe I'm exaggerating and her obsession on mandatory vaccines was not driven by no-vax sentiment, then guess what? About a year ago, she was asked in an interview if she had given the 10 mandatory vaccines to her 6-month-old daughter, and she evaded the question. Now, ain't that suspicious? It almost seems like she is covering up her anti-vax sentiments and her beliefs on ludicrous conspiracy theories with questionable anti-corporation populist messages. But hey, this is just a theory, a game theory. Thank you for watching.
Ciao a tutti, mi avete scritto in molti in queste ore sulla vicenda Cotticelli. Naturalmente quando si nomina un commissario, così come quando si fanno altre nomine, non si può sapere prima quale sarà la performance, la capacità della persona nominata di raggiungere gli obiettivi, ma bisogna verificarli, bisogna controllarli. Allora, quando facemmo queste nomine, io dissi ai vari commissari che avrei controllato la loro attività e che se non avessero raggiunto i risultati previsti, mi sarei riservato di esprimere un parere negativo sulla loro permanenza per appunto quella nomina. Non lo potei fare perché poi, come sapete benissimo, cade il governo ad agosto del 2019 e poi venne formato il nuovo governo e quindi poi non potei più seguire l'attività.